Hello and welcome to Talk a Good Game. And it's the last video 2018 as we're discussing the first match of 2019 as West Ham United take on Brighton at London Stadium on the 2nd of January. Tom, as always, we'll start with our opponents. What's your thoughts on the Seagulls?
I'll tell you what, mate, massively overachieving yet again. Chris Hughton just continues to impress, don't he? He's an absolute fantastic manager. They're one of them. They're another one. You keep looking at their team thinking, I don't see how he's getting the results out of them that he is. They just keep on doing it. They've got a solid foundation and they just really, really work hard for their manager. So I've got a lot of respect for them, really. They're the overachievers. And I'll tell you what, they've got no worries about relegation at all. I can't remember exactly, but I did look at the table earlier. They're God knows how many points away from danger. So it's another season in the Premier League for them next year, as far as I'm concerned, which for a club like Brighton, not being harsh, that's always going to be their aim, to stay up. And yeah, they're going to do it, and they're going to do it early. So a lot of respect for Brighton.
Yeah, they're 10 points ahead of Burnley at the minute. Burnley are 18, Brighton are 10 points ahead. They've done well. They've turned the Amex into a fortress. It's a very, very difficult place to go to. They're fantastic at home. They're good at grinding out results at home. The problem for them is that while they've made it difficult for teams to visit there, they've made it difficult for themselves somehow visiting other teams. They're just not that good on the road. And that's the difference between them finishing, say, 15th and 8th, for example. If they could somehow turn their away form around, then they'd be looking at a top half side, purely looking at their results. They're very well organised. This will not be an easy game at all. This is actually one of the opponents you probably don't really fancy coming up against when you're in need of a victory, for example. I think they've got a few good players, but is there anyone in that Brighton team you just sort of said you don't see how they're getting the results, but who do you fear going into the game on Wednesday night?
This is the thing. They've got some star players for them. I wouldn't necessarily say fear. That's probably not the word I'd use, because I wouldn't have them at West Ham. No disrespect, I really wouldn't. But Solly March, should I say, is a good player. I did write a few down because I had a feeling you'd ask this question. So, yeah, March, obviously. Murray, who we know his record against West Ham, similar to Chris Wood against Burnley. Gross, obviously, we know about creativity. He is a very good player, probably their best player, Gross. And Stevens, who I think is a good player. But I'll tell you what I really do like, is a bit inconsistent in terms of his final ball or that kind of thing. But I do like Knockhart, but they didn't start him against Everton. So, and I'm assuming they're going to not start him against us, because that was a great result for them last time out. So I can't see them changing it around. But I do like Knockhart. Yeah, I think he's a good player. And him and Gross probably their main threats, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I kind of want to echo what you say. I'll add in Lewis Dunk to that. I think he's a lovely centre-back outside the top six. And if he was to sort of be linked with West Ham, you wouldn't really turn your nose up at it. Solly March is the one that's caught my eye this season, actually. Pascal Gross, it was fantastic last season. It's probably, in my opinion, he was the signing of the season. When you look at how much people pay for what they get, pay for like £4 million or something it was for him, and what they got out of him, it was an incredible piece of business. But this season, he's had his injury. He's just back in now. I think he's only got 1 assist for the season so far. But March has caught my eye when I've watched the last 2 Brighton games now. I thought they were fantastic against Arsenal. Did well against Everton to grind out that result. They've now got that Locadia, who I don't know much about. He's scored in his last 2, though, and that's always dangerous when you're coming up against a striker. I think he went 12 without scoring, and now he's got 2 in his last 2. As you said, Glenn Murray, he's got 6 against West Ham United. We are his favourite opponent. In fact, he hasn't scored more goals against anyone else in his entire career, so he's rocking up in good form. I thought Matt Ryan would be a big miss for him, because he's obviously away to the Asian Cup game where Son will be going away with Spurs soon, and he's already out on international duty. The keeper that came in, I can't remember his name, the bald guy, he looked quite handy against Everton, made a couple of good saves as well. He made a couple of what I would call Fabianski saves, that makes sense. You know, what I think Fabianski is good at is getting down low to hit very close to his side quickly, and he did one of them against Richarlison, tip onto the post, very, very good save. Does it worry you that Brighton's strengths are weaknesses, i.e. they're very similar to Burnley?
It does, and that's when I've sort of seen us struggle a bit this season, was the game at Brighton, obviously, Huddersfield away, and Burnley just gone. And yeah, they're all sort of teams who like to sort of defend their own box and defend quite deep, and we are sort of struggling to break those sides down. We're just sort of getting crowded out, and we're not using the space very well, or finding the space, so it is a concern. What I'll say about Duncan Duffy, and I think this sort of leads on to that, both of them centre-halves, I think, are very much like Ogbonna in the sense that they look good playing in a team that defends deep, defends their own box. If you got them into our team where they've sort of got to play with a high line, play that offside trap, I think they'd get caught out. The same as James Tarkowski, I think, is another one in that category. Great at defending their own box, and that's where we're going to struggle. And the sort of team I'd like to put out sort of reflects that, really, because I'm going to expect the same from them that we saw at the Amex. I think they're gonna just try and hold on to whatever they've got, and yeah, it's up to us to break them down, isn't it?
Indeed, right. We'll talk about West Ham in a minute. All I'm going to say is this fixture last season was the worst fixture for me. Friday night at home, and we got beat 3-0 by them. That's when I had to leave early to get home that night as well, and I couldn't find a chip shop or nothing. I hated that fixture last season. But I think I like Brighton. They're a nice little team, and I think they will stay. I agree with you, actually. I think they will stay up. They've got enough about them. They're what I would call Premier League savvy. They know what to do, and I think Chris Hughton will be turning up at the London Stadium with what he considers to be a plan to come away with at least a point. They've lost 7 of their 10 away games so far in the Premier League. So we'll talk about that in a second. We've got our boats on Wednesday night. As always, they open at 4:45. So if you fancy coming along for a barbecue and a beer, just 2 minutes from the ground, you can get your tickets. The link is in the description below. Kids go free, as always. So hopefully we'll see you there for a little bit of pre-match banter. Tom, let's talk about West Ham. When I've been doing these with Gonzo and a guest recently, we've been winning, so it's difficult to discuss a team lineup because you don't really want to change too much in a winning team. We've just got beat, and we've got beat embarrassingly in some aspects, etc. So Zabaleta looks like he could be back. Does he go straight back in? But does Antonio still retain a position in your starting 11?
No, he doesn't, and Zabaleta does go straight back in, which is actually harsh. This was probably the hardest decision to make in the whole team because I did really like his performance against Burnley, and I've liked his last few performances, and we are sort of starting to see the old Antonio back with that bit of pace and power that he sort of lost last season. I don't know what happened to him, but he did. He seemed to completely lose it, but Pellegrini's got an arm around him and sort of sorted him out. So it is in the team that I've wrote down. I've dropped him, which I actually think's harsh myself. Yeah, I feel a bit bad doing it, really, but he's going to be a great option off the bench still.
Oh, I would keep Antonio in. He's one of the first names on the team sheet for me this week because he's the only. If you look at the last 2 games combined, if you like, he's one of the ones that's been most consistent over the 180 minutes against Burnley. He was one of the only players that was trying, and for that, I think it sends out the wrong example if you were to bench someone like that. I think Zabaleta comes in, but Antonio retains his place in the start 11, whether it's right wing or maybe even up front. One of the two for me, but he stays in there. Does the rest of the defence pick itself by default for you, Tom? Are you throwing a curveball in here? Because Balbuena's not back, so we've only really got 2 centre-backs in Diop and Ogbonna, and then obviously Creswell's been playing well at left-back.
Yeah, that's absolutely massive again, and I'm gutted about that, to be honest with you. I know we spoke on the review and we were both very critical of Ogbonna. Just don't trust him in that back 4. Don't trust him with us playing a high line. Don't trust him with us playing the offside trap. I just don't have any faith in him at all. Again, sounds harsh, but we've seen evidence of it time and time again. So, but yeah, we just don't have any other options. I'm not going to do anything crazy like, put somebody different in there. So it's going to have to be them, and definitely Creswell. Creswell has now cemented himself, as far as I'm concerned, as the number 1 left back. I'm impressed with him every time I see him there. Ever since the Newcastle game, when he came back in, he was brilliant in that game, went off injured. Unfortunately, he was out for a couple of games. Then Masuaku was in the team. But no, Creswell for me, 100%. I think he's finally sort of, I think that competition's done him a bit of good. And I think we're now starting to see the real Creswell again. So definitely Creswell for me, mate.
And what about the skipper? He was supposedly dropped against Watford. We got beat. He came back in. We got beat. He got dropped after Watford. He left out against Southampton. We won. He came back in against Burnley and had what can only be described as one of his worst performances in a long, long time.
Yeah, look, to be fair, and yeah, he was poor against Burnley, but I'm very similar to you, Gio, mate. I'm a big fan of Mark Noble, so there's a lot of bias in this for me, probably. But he always makes my team. Whether people like that or not, I don't know. But he just does. He's our captain, he's our leader, and I love the bloke. And I think he gets a lot of unnecessary criticism at times. It's easy to label the blame at him when things aren't going well. He's not immune to any sort of criticism. Like I say, he had a poor game, but everybody has a poor game every now and again. The 75% of the team had a poor game against Burnley, and we're not going to start dropping 75% of the team. So for me, Noble goes back in, mate.
I would be dropping him. I think, like I said, about the wrong message to Antonio. I think this sends the wrong message to the team, if you like, if Mark Noble stays in. As you said, he is the captain, so for that, I expect him to lead by example, and I didn't feel that against Burnley. And I do think people overreact a little bit. 2 weeks ago, everybody was saying how he deserves his new deal. Then suddenly, there was a lot of people saying that he should be sold in January. Legs have gone, should never play again. And you just thought it's either this extreme or that extreme. Now, Noble picked up his 5th yellow card, and there was a bit of confusion because if you look at the Premier League, if you look at the FA website, it says that the cut-off date for yellow cards is the end of the year, which means he would be suspended. But it also says it's match day 19. We played match day 20 against Burnley, so there's a conflict of interest by the FA's own website, but it does look like Noble is not suspended for this one, and it is actually the match day 19 thing rather than the date per se. And the date thing is going to be key in a second. But you've obviously got your team written down there. So would you care to read it out? We obviously know 5. We know 7 of your team. So who's your other 4?
Well, the funny thing is, I wrote down the team, and I changed my mind before we come on air. I've not got my change my mind team, but I'll tell you what. So I originally stuck with the 4-4-2, not really knowing about a lot of the injuries. So I did put Hernandez in there with an Arnautovic up front, but I don't know whether Hernandez is fit or not. But that's what I did. But I wanted to change that anyway. I'm going to change the system again. I'm going to put a 5-man in midfield. So I'm bringing Obiang in alongside Noble and Rice. Snoddy I'm keeping in the team. Anderson and Arnautovic on his own.
Yeah, I would be vesting Snodgrass for this one. I just thought he looked knackered against Burnley. He didn't play bad. He just looked pooped. And apparently he got taken off at halftime as a precaution, which says to me he's not 100%. So let's not risk him. Please do not risk him. And this is where Mr. Controversial Gio comes along. And I actually care more about the Birmingham game than this one against Brighton. The Birmingham game is a more important game for me than the one against Brighton. So I would be leaving out Snodgrass so I could play him against Birmingham. I have him on the bench, certainly. But I just think I don't want to see us put out like a really patched up 80% fit squad against Brighton, and then against Birmingham, those players all have to be rested, and we have to put out a really young team, etc. because of the Brighton fixture. I think we need to look at the 2 fixtures as a whole almost and think, well, if you play here, can you play against Birmingham? And if the answer is no, then don't play him against Brighton because they're obviously not fit enough. The Arnautovic thing's a bit confusing because he did not look right against Burnley either. So if he's not fit, don't play him. You know, Carroll looked all right against Burnley. He came on with a bee in his bonnet. He had a little bit about him. The one thing I would like to see is Diangana left mid. I would like to see him play there, and I'd like to see Anderson come off the wing because against Brighton, their 38-year-old right back Bruno had him in his pocket. He knew what to do against Anderson. Now, I don't think it will be him that plays. I think it'll be Montoya, but Putin will be saying to Montoya, this is how you deal with him. Montoya did very well against Aubameyang against Arsenal 2 weeks ago. So if you can cope against Aubameyang, you'll be all right against Anderson as well. So we need to just help our creative players. And I think the way to help Anderson is by actually giving him no role. Start with, I like your formation, but I would start like 4 at the back, 2 centre midfields, Obiang and Rice, 2 wingers, Diangana and Antonio, someone up front. If he's fit enough, Arnautovic. If he's not fit enough, then it's probably going to have to be a Carroll because I don't think Hernandez will be fit. And then just say to Anderson, just go where you fancy. You don't have a position. Just go where you want. You're 40 million. Look 40 million. That's your job. Your job is to go out there, influence the game. If the midfield, if Rice and Obiang are struggling to get the ball moving, drop back into the centre midfield and help them out for 10 minutes. If someone's struggling out on the right-hand side of midfield, go on the right-hand side for 10 minutes and help him out. Just use your footballing brain, if you like, and just create space. If a Brighton player is struggling, if Montoya is having a poor game against Diangana, go out there and double up on the bugger. Get him in the book, get him and keep going at him so he has to get subbed or something. And I just think sometimes we just need to use Anderson a little bit more. He can see things nobody else in our team can see. That's fact. We can see that by his passes, etc. And I just think we need to utilise that a little bit. And having him out on the left, I think, shackles him a little bit. So I would like to see those shackles off. Now, Samir Nasri, signed for West Ham, was announced earlier today. What's your thoughts on the signing, Tom?
I'll tell you what, I was in that camp when we were first linked to him where I was giving it the, oh no, what you doing? What about Declan Rice? You know what I mean? But that's all sorted now. So it's purely on the player, Samir Nasri. Right. Couple of thoughts on this one, probably, mate. And that's, it could go, look, it could just go either way. I don't know until I see him. And the reason for that is the concerns I've got is he's not played in such a long time because of his ban, obviously. So that's a concern. And the other one, the last club he was at was in Turkey. What was he doing in Turkey? That sort of got me a little bit worried. You know, was he not good enough to play in one of the major leagues in Europe? Having said all that, if we get a Samir Nasri that's anywhere near the old Samir Nasri, yeah, we've got a great player. But not only that, I'm sort of in the camp now where I just trust Pellegrini's judgment so much. Like, whatever Pellegrini decides, I'm sort of just rolling with it. And I've just got a lot of respect for the bloke because the decisions he's making have been working. His signings have been good. The ones that have been fit, I've just got the utmost respect for the bloke. And if he sees something in him, then it's fine by me. Who am I to say? So yeah, that's sort of how I see it, mate.
And there's a bit of confusion with Nasri as well as Martin Noble. And this one is the Premier League rules are when they changed the deadline, they changed the deadline day in the summer. They brought it back to the night before the season starts, etc. They also agreed that in January, anyone that signs at the start of January cannot play game week 21, which is the fixtures on the 1st of January, 2nd of January, and 3rd of January, because it finishes with Liverpool against Manchester City. So if you sign on the 1st of January, you're not allowed to play this weekend. However, Nasri's a free agent, so there's the whole curveball. Does he fit into this whole rule, if you like? Because we haven't paid for him, we don't have a club, so technically he could sign for us today, as he has done. So it's, as football fans, we don't know if he's allowed to play or not. Going by the rules, it doesn't look too like it. But some newspaper articles are saying he can play, and some newspaper articles are saying he can't play. Regardless, he's probably not going to be much sharp anyway, so the bench will be the best we can hope for. But we don't know if he is actually available or not, so we'll find out soon. Are you confident for this one, Tom? Our stats, if you look at our stats, there's two ways. I like my stats, but this is where stats can be a bugger. We've won 5 and 7. We've also lost 2 and 3 and failed to score in both of those games.
Yeah, true, mate. Yeah, that's exactly how it can be twisted. Yeah, I am confident though, mate. I am. I don't see how I can't be. Like I say, I look at their team on paper, forget about anything in the past. You look at sometimes you've got to look at the two teams on paper, and we should be beating these, so we should be more than confident of beating them. Yeah, the problem is how they play, like we've said before. I'm worried about them playing such a deep line and sort of crowding us out. But that was why when this is why I'll give you my thoughts on what I was doing with my wingers. Why I kept Anderson on the left and Snodgrass on the right is because I want them wingers cutting inside and taking shots from outside the box. Sometimes we get a bit too tippy-tappy when teams sit back in their own 18-yard box, and you've just got to take shots from outside the box. And Snodgrass and Anderson are good options as far as that's concerned. And then you've got the fullbacks that can overlap them, take their fullbacks out of the game, give us that little bit of room in the middle, and sort of that's why you want someone with a bit of good movement in the middle as well. So hopefully Arnautovic is fully fit. That will be in the case. Yeah, I am really confident for this. I think we get back to winning ways. I really do. Hopefully that don't come back and bite me on the backside, but I can only see us winning this, mate.
Yeah, we're going to have to give, I think we need to give the Burnley game a bit of a score it off and just say, look, it happened. And Pellegrini said about how they didn't get home till 2 a.m. in the morning after the Southampton game. I mean, you can't then blame whoever Mr. Logistics is for sorting that. Someone's responsible for that error. But 2 away games in the space of 4 days is probably a very difficult thing to do. And Brighton have had 2 good results, but they were at home for both of those games. That will have given them a massive advantage. Now they're coming away. The lads will have been back at home for 2 or 3 nights with their families, etc., etc. And it probably does make a big difference. Mentality, at least, maybe not physically fatigued, but mentally it will make you tired or make you a bit happier, etc., etc. And we need to see a response. Pellegrini's always said he's going to install a big club mentality at West Ham. We're going to find out on Wednesday night if he's done that or not, because a big club will bounce back. A big club will turn up and pretend that defeat never happened, and they will play with confidence. They will play like they beat Burnley. And this is where I think this is the first time we will see if this big club mentality has been installed by Pellegrini, and I hope it has. And I'm quite confident, like yourself, Tom. I am. I think Brighton's away form is really poor. I think if you offer Chris Hughton a point right now, I think he would take it. And I think that's the difference in mentality of the two managers in the dugout. on the night, if it's 0-0 with half an hour to go, I think they will probably retreat a little bit, whereas Pellegrini will put on an extra attacker and try and go get those extra 2 points. And that's why, you know, we've fell in love with Pellegrini, if you like. It's a romance story at West Ham right now. But I'll get your score prediction in a second. But before I do, if you were an eagle eye watching Match of the Day, etc., if you did sit and put yourself through that again, as West Ham got beat 2-0 by Burnley, you might have seen some people in the way end wearing some nice claret snoods with the crossed hammers on it. One like this. If you'd like to get your hand on one of these, it's £15, and just email us, hammerschat@gmail.com. We've sold over half of them already. So if you want one, get in touch ASAP, and we'll sort out payment, etc., and get ones posted out to you. But yeah, they made some appearances on my telly when I was watching Match of the Day. Tom, your first preview, I believe. Can I have your first score prediction, please?
Tell you what, mate, I want to go for a nice little 2-0.
Now, 2-0 West Ham win. I'm going to go for 2-1. I said it to Gonzo, Tom, and I'm going to keep saying it. I'm going to predict us to score and concede in every single game for the rest of the season, I think. Anyway, that's our final video for 2018. Just want to say a massive thank you to everybody that's tuned in, whether they've tuned in for this one video because Tom's on, whether it's your 10th, your 100th, or whatever. Thank you very much for your support. We appreciate every single one of you. And you can drop a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new around here. And I'll be back on Wednesday night, an hour before the kickoff, with somebody on the other channel discussing the lineups, and we'll see who starts and who doesn't. Thank you very much, and Happy New Year to y'all. Catch you in a bit.